Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Stop Doing Nothing TV. This week, I am very pleased and actually very privileged to have what I would consider a good friend of mine on the show today, Jay Baer, not beer, Baer, right, like the animal.
Well, either really is appropriate. It's pronounced Baer, but beer is also a frequent occurrence.
For some reason, I've got it ingrained in my head that it's beer because when I first met you a couple of years ago, you were giving out the can openers.
I still have I got one right here.
Okay.
This is my actual business card.
Right.
Official J. Baer business card, which is a bottle opener. And the more you drink, the better my books are. So it's
it's also good.
Win-win.
If people ever say, this is one of the things I first noticed about it, which is probably disturbing about me, is when they say you're a kid, if you're going to go into like a street and possibly get in a fist fight, you keep like a roll of quarters in your fist. When I hold that thing, it fits in my fist. I'm like, if I could take a swing at somebody, I've got a piece of steel in my hands.
Mess somebody up. Yeah,
exactly.
That's not why I started with these cards. But now that you say it, I mean, you could really
exactly. So
something to think about.
Right. Okay, Jay is. I'm assuming that most people know Jay, but to assume it's bad. He's a multiple-time.
My mom watching?
Yeah, he's mom watching, mom and dad. Multiple-time best-selling book writer. 2 of the books, I think you said, were on the New York Times bestseller list, which is, best-selling is one thing, but when you're New York Times, you're definitely legit. I've met Jay on multiple occasions, mainly through the National Speakers Association, and we've been privileged to speak in person or to across some other events every now and then. And probably the time I really got to know him the best is when he went a little meta and there was an NSA conference and he spoke about his organization and the growth of it, which was a fascinating thing up in New York, Times Square, and the Marriott that like overlooks Times Square was pretty cool. And I also thought it was pretty cool, Jay, and I got to give you kudos here. When I was sitting in the audience and I was like in the front and you like knew my name, I was like, what? How does Jay know my name? And I was just telling another friend about
You're
that.
a legend, brother.
There's various legends for various reasons. There's infamous and there's famous. And they're very close together there. So, Jay, can you give us a quick update about, I know Hug Your Haters came out a year ago, but what do you have going on right now?
So, my most recent book is Hug Your Haters, which is all about modern customer service, social media customer service taking place in public. So still doing a lot of speaking and consulting on those topics, lots of fun. The consulting team at Convince Convert continues to grow. We're doing some amazing work for some really remarkable brands. It's a lot of fun getting to work with who we get to work with, and it's a real honor to do that. And lots of speaking, of course, and our media company, the Convince Convert Media division, has a very, very large blog, and we're running 5 weekly podcasts and a bunch of other things, lots of webinars and a new video series. I'm doing 2 videos a week called J Today.
Right.
It's at jtoday.tv. So lots of balls in the air as always, which is, I'd have it no other way. I hate to be bored. So I make sure this whole idea of stop doing nothing, it's not a problem for me.
Got it. So in your grand history of things, I don't want to spend too much time on history. I don't actually remember or recall hearing you how Convince and Convert came about. Can you cover that a little bit?
Sure. So Convince and Convert is my 5th professional services organization that I've kind of owned or managed. And I started a firm called Mighty Interactive in 2000, which became one of the larger online marketing, digital marketing companies in the Southwest. And I sold that firm to an ad agency and then spent 3 years helping to run the combined company. When my contract was up, my plan was to go teach, to go be a university professor.
Right.
And then we sort of had, especially in Arizona where I lived at the time, the simultaneous collapses of the stock market and the real estate market. And I was like, yeah, that whole teaching thing is not going to work for me just now. So started Convince and Convert to help organizations do better digital marketing and content marketing and social media marketing. And it started off as just me, and then it became me and a virtual assistant. And now we're up to 14 people, all virtual, all over the world, actually. And we've been on the Inc. 5000 list as one of the fastest growing private companies in the US. And it's massively exceeded what my initial expectations are. And we keep growing about 30% a year every year.
Very, very brilliant. So that presentation I saw a couple of years ago in New York, that thing is way out of date, right?
Yeah, we're probably double that size now, something like that.
Okay, good
Yeah.
deal. Okay, since the show is all about showing entrepreneurs and small business owners basically how to be productive, I want to talk a little bit about that point when it was just you and then you and the virtual assistant. That's a point that I think a lot of people don't know how to cross. Is it's me and I'm overwhelmed and I'm fitting 13 hours of work in a 12-hour day. And so how did you know when it was time to, okay, you know what, Jay can't do this all on his own. He needs to prioritize. How did you know that at that point?
Well, I was lucky that this wasn't my first go round, right? I'd started other companies and kind of gone through that process. But I'll tell you the issue, Patrick, is that so many entrepreneurs and sole proprietors, they value money more than time. And it's the exact wrong thing to do.
Okay.
This idea that, well, I could hire somebody to do this, but then I'd have to pay them, and I don't want to pay them because I want to keep the money. That robs you of the ability to multiply your time, as our friend Rory Vaden would say in his outstanding book, Procrastinate on Purpose. And so what you want to do, and this is sort of how I've grown Convince to Convert, is to say, what am I uniquely qualified to do? Mm-hmm. And so each year, my team and I sit down and audit everything that I do. We literally look at my calendar for a year and say, let's break down all the tasks that I have done and say, which of the things that I'm doing, that I'm spending my time on, am I uniquely qualified to do that? Nobody else could really do that in the company.
Right.
And so those include things like be on podcasts and give speeches and write books. But all the other things that I'm doing, lots of other people could do. I'm not uniquely qualified to send invoices or any number of other things. And so what you want to do is eventually set it up so that you're only spending your time on the things that you're the only one who can do it. And that requires you to bring in help, to get virtual assistants or accountants or designers or whatever else you need. And does that cost you some money? Yeah, it costs you some money. But having your time back allows you to move your business forward in a way that massively transcends the dollars you're going to spend to get some help.
Okay, so as the head of Convince to Convert, would you say your primary function is basically like the face of the company? You're the speaking, you're the podcasting, you're doing the content production. I know you have other people that write for Convince and Convert, but you do you handle like the lead content production, would you say?
No, we do 10 blog posts a week.
Okay.
And I write 2 of them.
Okay.
So it's by no means, Jay's blog.
Okay.
We have 5 podcasts. I do 1 of them.
Okay.
On the client side of the consulting side, I look at everything before it goes out the door, but I don't do any of the consulting. So my job is to generate new business, and set strategy, and push the organization forward.
Got it.
So we're completely overhauling our consulting deliverables right now, kind of what we sell to big clients like 3M and Adidas and Cisco and Oracle, what we sell to them. And that's because I said, you know what, we've been doing it this way for 8 years, and I think the market's changing, and we need to do it differently. And so I'm going to pull the pin off the grenade and lob it over and blow up what we're doing today and start over.
Got it.
But that's my responsibility, is to keep people pushed forward strategically.
Right.
And so that's what I try and spend my time on, is to say, let me think like a customer and say, how do the customers love this? And if they don't, then let's change it.
Right. So on a day-to-day basis, the company, kind of the back end of the company, can run a little bit without you.
Thank God. It wasn't always like that. I mean, that's only within the last probably 2 years, kind of gotten to that point. But every year, I talk about this process of auditing your time. Every year, I try and take 15% of my tasks away.
Right.
So 15% of the things that I'm doing, we give to somebody else, which frees up 15% of my time to be more strategic, to do more business development, to grow the business, to do more partnerships, things like that, write more books. And it's not, it's not 3 months or 6 months. For us now, it's been incrementally 7 years of getting to the point where the business can kind of run without me.
Okay. Now, if I recall correctly, I mean, you've got the people, you've got some brilliant people resources who run the back end.
Yep.
I know, like you said, it's very hard for entrepreneurs to jump to that. But technology-wise, do I recall you once talking to me, or or talking about apps that you use? Because I remember that we were talking about J Today before this a little bit, and I know that the production on J Today was facilitated by some apps. Can you talk a little bit about that, which makes you more productive when it comes up with that show?
We use tons of technology for all manner of things in the organization. So we use Teamwork, which is an app for project management. It's some people may know that software. We're very heavy users of Teamwork, and the reason that we selected Teamwork as opposed to Basecamp or Asana or any of the other project management tools is that Teamwork allows you to pick a date and then create a project plan backwards from that date. Most of the other software programs allow you to pick a start date and then work forwards.
Right.
And the reason that's important for me is that when you go give a speech, the day of the speech is known. And what you want to do is say 2 days before the speech, send the bio. A week before, make sure they have the slides. 2 weeks before, make sure you have your travel, right? And so you've got to work backwards from the delivery date.
Right. And
Teamwork was one of the only software platforms that would allow you to build project plans based on that circumstance, which is why we use Teamwork.
Right.
We probably make the most use of a platform called Sococo, which is a ridiculous, terrible name. It's SOCOCO.
Right.
And Sococo is a virtual office environment. So as I mentioned, there's 14 of us all over the U.S. I've got one in Costa Rica, one in the Dominican Republic. I got people everywhere.
Right.
And so Sococo gives you it looks like a blueprint of an office. And so people have their own there's Jay's office and Kelly's office and Daniel's office, literally like a little office. And then you've got an avatar there, and you can, if you're in your office, someone can pop into your office and then turn on their cameras and their audio, and it's live video chat, or you can do text chat and things like that. So it's almost like Slack or Skype, but with this virtual office environment. And it seems at first really goofy because it kind of feels like a 1997 internet mall. You know, you have like the virtual reality, like, oh, a shoe store. Like it's kind of funky like that. But just this sort of fake reality of having a digital yet physical environment where your avatar represents, really powerful from kind of a team building, and we're in the same office even though we're not perspective. So we really like it. It's been good.
Okay, so when you're out of office, I guess you actually go in there and they know that. Do they keep track of you like where you are around the world, or just like inner office or out of office? In
office, out of office, but you have a little status message that says, okay, I'm in Calgary, or I'm in, wherever.
That's brilliant. Wow. Yeah. I'm glad to hear when people talk about tools to know that we use the same tools. We probably just started using Teamwork about 6 months ago, after going through like the Basecamp and the things like that. And I found Basecamp is way too, actually, wasn't the milestones so much as you're talking about. It was just way too relaxed. The planning was too relaxed and wasn't too rigid. It wasn't rigid enough for me. I came from a severe project management background. I can't remember what that project planning software was. Microsoft used to have.
Yeah, Microsoft Project. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Didn't realize it was that obvious of a name. But where you plan a project and like people and like it would like auto plan your times for you.
Charts everything out and
exactly. And you say So I was used to that, being that strictly trained in that. But it's good to know that you use Teamwork like I was also now. Real quick. With the J Today show, is there a particular piece of software you use with that? Because I know a lot of people that watch this show are going to be into video content production and getting that stuff out really easily.
You bet. So a couple things. One, I use ScreenFlow a ton for video creation and demos and walkthroughs. There's a lot of software out there to do that, but I just like ScreenFlow the best. So I use that a ton. But on the post-production side, we work with a company that also has an app out of Indianapolis called Candidio, which is another kind of curious name. It's Candidio, Candidio. And you just upload your clip, and then you say what you want them to do, and they go in and cut it and edit it and sweeten it and improve it, and then give it back to you in a couple of days inexpensively. So if you don't have particularly good video editing skills, or in my case, you don't want to spend your time doing that, they'll do it for you inexpensively. They're really good guys, and it's all virtual, so you don't have to mess around. It's a really nice service.
Okay, so if you're like Jay does, Jay's traveling around the world. So if you're in a hotel room and you need to get out an episode of Jay Today,
click.
You can do that on your phone and push it out and it's gone.
Absolutely. Yep.
God, brilliant. So we were talking a little bit about in the beginning, we were talking about how most entrepreneurs have an issue with wanting to do everything themselves. When you were talking about this audit and the things that you should be doing and you should not be doing, can you give me actually you talked about that recently, like in your most recent audit, can you give me an example of something that maybe wasn't the best for you to do, or something you've learned over the years? Because you've got all this experience and all this skill from multiple companies. But I'm like, how can Jay continuously improve when he does this all the time?
So in our most recent audit, there is a new thing that we're doing on the media company called Webinar of the Week. And in Webinar of the Week, we don't actually do it every week. It ends up being maybe twice a month. We work with the company to promote a webinar that they have forthcoming. And as part of the Webinar of the Week package, we will write a blog post on our site, convinceconvert.com. Promote the webinar. We will create some graphics and social. We'll do some paid social media advertising. We sort of promote the webinar to make sure that the sponsor gets a lot of attendees and signups for their webinar. So it used to be that I would sit down and I would actually write the blog post and say, here's why this webinar is awesome. You should go to this webinar because. I don't need to do that, actually, we discovered in the audit. So now our managing editor writes that blog post, sends it to me 2 days before it goes live. I look at it, polish it up a little bit, just make it sound a little bit more like me. And then we put it out there. So we're ghostwriting something like that, which is more promotional about the webinar as opposed to here's my sort of thought leadership kind of a blog post. So just things like that where you say, you know what, I don't have to do that myself.
Got it. Interesting. So is it almost going to become a service that you guys offer? Like I can come to Convince and Convert and you guys will market my webinar, because those are huge right now with product launches and things like that.
That's exactly it. The other thing that we did in this most recent audit is it used to be that when we were doing a big strategic deliverable, so we would do a social media strategy or a content marketing strategy. We're doing one right now for Hilton. That's a good example. So we're doing a social media strategy for Hilton hotels. So the way it used to work is the team, we always have 2 consultants on each project. The team would do an alpha version of the strategy. The alpha would go to me. I would make comments. It would go to our head of strategy. He would make comments, then the team would take it back. They'd make a beta version, let me see the beta version, let him see the beta version, give it back to them. They'd make a final version, one more round of comments, and then it'd go to proofing. Well, now, based on the audit, we decided, you know what, there's not that much value that I'm adding that our head of consulting is not going to add anyway in the first phase. So now I don't see the document until the beta. So the alpha phase only goes to the strategists and our head of strategy. And then when it's a little farther along, I get involved and say, yeah, guys, but what about this other thing? And so taking me out of one whole round of approvals probably saves me, it probably ends up being 7 hours a month, just that one change. So, there's no, when you start thinking about productivity, one of the great fallacies is that there's some sort of secret, like let's use this system, let's use this protocol or this framework, and that's going to solve all my problems. And that's not how it works. It's a bunch of little things that when they're combined become a big thing. But I think people are always looking for the silver bullet of productivity. It doesn't exist, There is no magic formula. You just do it. It's like people ask me, how can we use a Mac instead of a PC? And it's like, well, I've found that every repeatable task is 5% faster on a Mac. Now, at the individual task level, that's insignificant. But when you think about how much time I spend on a computer, 5%, 5%, 5%, 5% ends up with a huge productivity gain. But it's over the long haul, not instantaneously.
I learned that when I was reading, it's really interesting. I read the book 80-20 in Business and Marketing by Perry Marshall before I actually went back and read the original. And he talked about how when it comes to revenue or other things, that there's a 20% of the 80-20, and then of that 20%, there's an 80-20, and there's a 20% on top of that. So you really have to narrow down and focus your productivity on that. So I love the fact that you talk about it's the micro pieces. It's not the 3 or 4 hours you can save in a day. It's the 5 or 10 minutes you can save in a day over and over and over stacked up. One last big question for you. I know you're in the social space a lot, and Convince and Convert is very present on social with recorded video and things you do. In this day and age, business owners feel that they have to be on social media a lot. So I'm kind of curious about your opinion on that. And do you know how much time you spend on social media, like a day or a week? And is it a major part of your business, or do you try to like batch it up and do all at once? So I guess what I'm really asking is how much time do you spend on social media, and how important is it that you yourself are on social media quite a bit?
So as an organization, we spend a lot of time on social. We've got a whole set of accounts for me personally, a whole set of accounts for the company. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that content crosses over, sometimes it doesn't. There's different goals and objectives for each account, and whether it's personal or professional. I spend in a given week, mm-hmm. not nearly the time I used to. I personally spend, I would say it's 30 minutes a day in social. Okay. Maybe somewhere in that ballpark. But I have a person on my team who is a community manager that's all she does, right? So she's doing social for the company, and then she also does some of my social that I don't have to, that doesn't make sense for me to do personally, right? So for example, if I'm going to be on a webinar in 3 weeks, we have to promote that webinar, right? So we promote the webinar the day of, mm-hmm. The day before, the week before, 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before, right? So there's 5 or 6 different posts that have to happen about Jay's going to be on this webinar. Mm-hmm. Well, there's only so many ways to say that, right? There's only so many ways to say, I'm going to be on a webinar, would love for you to register. Right. Again, I am not uniquely qualified to say that thing. Mm-hmm. So when we sign a webinar that I'm going to be on, I sit down with the customer and my community manager and say, okay, what's our shtick here? Right. And then she creates those 6 posts and puts them out, right? And I'll answer questions and interact with people, but I'm not uploading the webinar tune-in graphic to Twitter because that's a stupid use of time. And now, don't get me wrong, I did that for years, right? I sent every tweet and every Facebook post and every Instagram post and for years and years and years and years. Right. But there comes a time mm-hmm. when you're not adding value disproportionate to somebody who is a social media professional doing the same thing. Right. So the what you say is valuable, but you creating an infographic out of it, coloring it, getting it in the right shape and the right dimension, everything, that's something you can give to somebody else. Yeah, because I'm not disproportionately good at it. I mean, I'm competent at it, but I'm not any better than she is. In fact, I'm worse. Right. So why would I do that? And you just have to kind of think through, like, where is your time valuable? Like mm-hmm. how are you going to, and every 20 minutes you spend making a Twitter graphic is 20 minutes you could have spent doing something else that might add more value to your life or somebody else's life or the company, like or the family or the daughter or the son or the wife. Patrick, it's funny. I find that for a lot of entrepreneurs, they sort of feel like delegation is failure, right? Mm-hmm. That if they have somebody else do things that they are somehow incapable of keeping all the balls in the air or the plate spinning, that they're less than, right? Because they've had to go get help. And I think the exact opposite is the case. Like, you need to get as much help as you can afford mm-hmm. and free yourself up to do things. Right. You can only, it really helps if you're better at a very small number of things. That's how I put it. Is I don't need to be good at Twitter dimensions, or how big does my Facebook cover photo have to be, or where do I go look in my insights and figure out how something happened. I need to be good at, for lack of a better term, in my organization, shaking hands and kissing babies and signing contracts. And that's just about it. Everything else I need to be removed from because I'm not very good at it. You said, as we wrap up here, you said the Jay Today show was back up. Where can we watch that? So jtoday.tv is the official home of that. That's the YouTube playlist. We do 1 episode a week on the blog as well. So convinceandconvert.com. Find it there. It's also always on my Facebook page. So you can find it there too. Slick stuff. And by the way, happy birthday for the book. Hug Your Haters. Thank you. A year old. A year old. It seems in some ways it seems like it's 10 minutes old, and in some ways it seems like it's I've been working on it for a long time. But it's been really gratifying. The reaction to that book has been exceptionally strong, and it's one of those things where you get a lot of emails from people who say, "Oh, you've really meaningfully changed my business and my approach to things," and that never gets old. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's always good. Well, Jay, man, very much appreciate your time.
My
I look
pleasure.
forward to the next time we get to see each other in person. I have no idea when that will be. Maybe
probably
the
summer. Yeah,
probably is NSA conference. Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. It's on my calendar right
July
here.
July in Orlando.
That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, who booked this?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get out my white socks and my black sandals. That's what I'm gonna be wearing right there.
All linen, baby. All linen.
Well, thank you very much for your time, sir. I'll let you get back to work, and it's been a pleasure talking with you.
See you.
Take care.